In the morning, citizens of Qumuloville, saddle up the mule and slide me some grits. It's the last week of the quarter, which also means the last Thursday of the month. And that means time for Qumulo Summer School. Coming at you from the Shadow Cheyenne Mountain Space Force Station, where our forecast is 50% chance of rain and 100% chance of awesome. I'm Will Stroh. Joining me as always and manning up the Q&A commons I am the sauce to his awesome, Mr. Michael Bird. If you got any questions, feel free to drop them out there and we'll see if we can answer them for you. Now, I will say my brother is currently stuck in Denver trying to get to Indianapolis. So if anyone on here happens to have a private jet that he can use, please let us know and I'll get the two of you connected. That'd be great. Barring that, today we're talking about Qumulo Nexus. Turns out it's been about 2 years since we last delved into this topic. And at that point in time, it was brand spanking new. So 2 years later, it's still handy as ever. And so let's just jump right in here. I will say, not an hour ago, a customer did tell me that Nexus is great for stats to keep management off our back. So if you ever needed a more real honest opinion, there you have it. And I would say I tend to agree with them in that case. So let's get this show rolling. Boop. Alrighty. So for anyone who doesn't know what Nexus is, and I don't know from the attendee list here how many of you have actually delved with it before. I do see a couple names I recognize out there, but we're going to go off the assumption that you don't know what it is. If you do, then you can just stay here and keep my numbers up. Smash that subscribe button and go get some coffee. If you don't know what it is our cloud-based management service. It's really designed to help simplify things. Gives you a single pane of glass to look at all the clusters that you might have. If you only have one cluster, that's fine. You can still use the web UI for that, but you can also use Nexus for it too. If you have two clusters, then you can totally use Nexus and look at both of them, and that gives you reason to get a third cluster at that point as well. Now you can look at health, capacity, all sorts of little numbers out there. This is free. There's no cost with it. It's just comes with part of the package deal. So it's a handy dandy thing there. I'm going to be jumping back and forth here, I will say, just so we can keep an eye on things. There's a whole bunch of slides we might come through these guys, but for the most part, we can just kind of look at it this way. So in this case, I am logged in as Qumulo Engineering. And so here's my main dashboard as I log in for the day. This is really, I've heard it described as a vanity screen, and I think this is really what it comes down to in regards to that comment of it's great for staff to keep management off our back. You know, across all clusters, I can say I have 6.25 petabytes of used space out there, bunch of files, bunch of client connections, etc. Then I can actually delve into each of these guys. And some of you may see these little yellow bars up here about your licenses. If you are seeing those, go talk to your CSM, raise a beef in the channel, make sure we got the licensing all figured out there for you. If you don't see that, great. All the better. It means that someone's doing the job. So as we scroll down here, we can kind of take a look at things, again, just from the vanity standpoint of it. We know our use space, file count, capacity, things like that. Little IOPS over time. Anything here is going to be the last 24 hours. So if you're looking for something that was more than 24 hours ago, obviously it's not going to be on this immediate page here. We'd have to delve into the actual cluster itself. So if we come back over to this guy, as we said, here we see this guy. Let's go ahead and pop into one of these instances here. And I have no idea which one to pick. So let's pick, I don't know. Let's pick Cold Maz 724. He sounds cool. I guess before we do that, actually, one item of note here is you will see a lot of these do have little icons over here. The Amazon ones have a little cloud fellow there, C&Q on the cloud. Eng Data Core, this is actual cluster here, physical cluster there. So it is something to keep in mind. Let's go back to Cold Maz here. This is probably a really bad one to pick because there's not a whole lot going on here. Let's pick somebody else. Hey, let's go to this drop down. Let's do the Stratus cluster. That sounds cool. All right. So right off the bat, really one of the high points a lot of customers like is this hardware health rating. So as you can see, we're doing nodes, drives, temperatures, and network interfaces. We don't cover things like power supplies here. Historically, well, I shouldn't say historically. Years ago, we did do power supplies, and it wasn't in this because this didn't exist years ago, but it was in the precursor trends.qumulo.com if you've been to that one before. Now I believe it redirects over here. In that one, we did cover power supplies for a while, and what we found was as customers, you guys have some really crazy power. It would often alert at strange times, strange hours, and it would just be a little blip here and there. It created a lot of false positives. When you have those things take place, you really want to make sure that the power is actually offline for extended period of time. And what we're finding was it wasn't. So it was either a case of the polling on the system itself was not up to snuff, if you will, or the power on site wasn't there. Regardless, we really don't monitor against that anymore. And typically, what I would say is customers do end up monitoring from a UPS perspective to see if the power has gone out. So it's more of that draw than anything else at this point. So as we just take a look at these here, this is going to say all nodes are online. So we got a 4-node cluster here, drives online. And let's go to this one because we do have a whole bunch of interfaces that apparently seem to be down. 4 interfaces, 4 NICs are down. Oh no, looks like a lot more than 4. I guess it's just the same ones hitting multiple times out here. So from a high level perspective, this works great. But what this doesn't tell you is, let's focus on these guys. We got Stratus Gravy 1, Stratus Gravy 1 here, same interface. Oh, it's back in the front end. I see. So we don't know from here is when these things did actually go offline. So let's just jump over here to events real quick, take a look, see if we can narrow in on this. So we did an upgrade. That was cool. That happened 9 days ago. Looks like we disconnected from here, and then we had some issues flopping around. Node disconnected. What was going on here? I don't know offhand without looking at the logs themselves. Pardon me. But I can say something was certainly happening on the 13th. Is that correlated with what we see from the NIC standpoint? Hard to say. In a case like this, you would really want to get into the cluster itself at that point and then take a look at things like a dmessage-t, IPMI, elist output, see what's out there and see what was taking place. What I can say from this is, again, from this overview, at this point right now, I have back end and front end that are kind of acting wonky here. Now, ideally, all this stuff is, you can see this is all from ETH5 standpoint, and it's across 4 nodes. And it's both front end and back end on those 4 nodes. So let's just play a little game here real quick. If I have ETH5 going bad on 4 nodes, front end and back end, what do we think that is? Do we think it's a cluster NIC or do we think it's probably a switch? My guess is it's probably a switch because the odds of having 4 NICs go bad all at the same time across 4 different nodes, pretty minimal. So in this case, I would point someone to take a look at the switch side of things and see where we're at there, because odds are it's going to show something along the lines of these NIC ports are down, or even the switch is down as a whole. That's entirely possible too. Realistically, you would tend to rather you expect to see one set of NICs going one way, one set of NICs going to another switch. So in this case, if I have ETH5 here, ETH4 is probably its pair in the LACP. which is probably heading over to another switch. So 99% certain this is a down switch issue in this point. But, I can say that without actually looking at any logs or anything like that. So there are some simple things you can do from that perspective of taking a look at these things. Let's see if we have one out here. I don't know that we do, but let's see if we have one that has some drives missing or something along those lines. A lot of these cloud things, those aren't going to work for me. Ooh, Eng data core, that sounds impressive. Nope, nothing there. But let's see here. I wonder if this guy is talking to the same switch. Very likely, very probable. In which case, engineering needs to get a switch maintenance person out there and take a look at that thing. Alrighty. So let's actually stay over here for a few, and let's jump back to. Well, we can stay on Eng data core. Well, let's not. He didn't do a whole lot. Let's look at this guy. Maybe C&Q. No, nothing good there. Really want a exciting cluster is what I want. Let's go let's go back to our Stratus fella. He should be good. All right. So as we dive into the cluster, we're again presented with this basic overview. This gives a little more information than we did on the front page. Things are a little bit bigger, I guess, but all in all, it's pretty much the same amount of information. You do get to see things such as things divvied up by protocol down here. So in this case, if I'm having SMB issues talking to this cluster, well, so is everyone else because I'm only serving NFS and REST right now. Is that a problem? I don't know. It comes down to whether or not there's a SMB share or not. As we pop into things, let's hop over to this analytics page here. So you guys can read these headers for yourself and understand what they are. There's a lot of lingo we use in the tech business, but some of these things are pretty self-explanatory, like file and directory counts. The interesting, or maybe not terribly interesting, but the key point over here to keep in mind is we do have this drop down up here. We are keeping 2 years worth of data. I don't know that it actually goes back full 2 years at this point because there was a weird event that took place in October and a half ago. So it might just be 18 months of data. But they ended up having to move things around, as I recall. So I don't know if it ever got reconciled or not. And in this case, this cluster hasn't been on for that long. So that would be the other thing. Looks like this guy came on board around April 29th, to be exact. So for that, let's just take a look at a week here. If you see things out here, now, let me back up some. Nexus, in addition to getting you those stats for management to keep them off your back, one of the nice things you can also do is just get a quick look to see if there's anything of concern. So if I see a whole bunch of snapshots taking place, for example, did something change? Did someone add a new policy out there that's set up, I guess would be a way of phrasing that. Is there something else out there that's going wild? Do I see snapshot usage suddenly spiking up? Does that mean that someone came in and started deleting a whole bunch of things? It means things certainly changed, I'll tell you that much. So again, this would be a key point to go back and revisit snapshot locking or something like that. Just in the off chance you have a bad actor out there who's causing trouble on your system. Again, I'll reiterate, the first thing they do is they go after those snapshots. If they can either delete those or get rid of those in advance, then they can go off and encrypt all your data. Bingo, bang, boom. Now you have a bad day on your hands. So something to keep in mind just from that there. Secondly, if we click on performance out here, this gives you a rundown of what you're actually seeing. Now, you will see things where if we cut down to latency here, for example, if you're to compare this to the latency shown in the UI on box, These things will be different. And the rationale there is that this is going to be capturing round trip latency versus just on disk latency. So this is a more accurate representation of what your clients are experiencing. Now, having been done this for 20 some odd years, man, I feel old. I will say the rule of thumb has always been if it's less than 10 milliseconds, end users aren't going to notice. Once you start breaching that 10 millisecond barrier, now you're getting into a zone where it may be noticed by end users. Now, if you got Kathy on VPN doing, home health sort of things, checkups with people back in the holler somewhere, she's never going to notice that, right? Because she's just used to it with the regular VPN latency. If it is someone sitting there in the hospital trying to get their EKG results, yeah, once you hit over that 10 milliseconds, then that latency is going to start affecting things. So this would be something to keep in mind. Now, obviously, if all your end users are applications, then you can take that with kind of a grain of salt, if you will, to determine whether or not that's going to be of importance. But by and large, 10 milliseconds is the standard we try and strive to. If we come up here, we see some IOPS hanging out here, some throughput. I can pretty much guarantee this throughput here was caused by these IOPS here. Hopefully I'm not making anyone seasick by bouncing this mouse around so much. And then as we come down again, you'd see if we had SMB clients here, you'd see those brought out here as well. In the case of disk latency, you can do the breakdown here between SSDs and HDDs. Now, again, going through, so it looks like this guy is an all flash system because we only have SSDs out here. Going through the rule of thumb route, 1 millisecond for an SSD, that's a lifetime. He did so much stuff in that millisecond. So this comes down to, do I have something wrong here? I may very well. Typically, we'd expect to see these down here in this, I don't know, is this a nanosecond or something? The microsecond. One of those Greek symbol things out there. Typically, we'd expect to see us down there. Now, is a single spike, is that of concern? Maybe, maybe not. Kind of depends what was going on at that point in time. If I see, if this purple line, for example, these are my reads, if this was up here at 1 millisecond constantly, then yeah, I probably do have some sort of issue on the system somewhere. If that's what my SSDs are being read at 1 millisecond, that's not expected out there. So we run a very fine line between what is of concern and what isn't. So we're getting a lot of data out here. And as storage admins, it's up to you guys to decide how you want to handle that. But it's also a case where not everything is a, fire drill, oh my gosh, we're going to need to evacuate the building sort of thing. Would I be concerned about this spike here? Honestly, probably not. If I start seeing this happen more and more often, yeah, maybe. Just for grins. And again, I'm just doing this live and without looking in advance. Let's see here. Last month, let's see what we got for our disk latency out here. Okay, so we're kind of all over the board, actually. So yeah, he's having a bad day. So at this point, I'd be kind of wondering what's going on with this thing. Why are my writes taking 11 milliseconds out there? I don't know. That'd be something worth looking into. And again, I at this point, for this, yeah, I'd probably open a case for this. If I just had that 3-day period, I wouldn't touch it. I'd be like, yeah, whatever. But looking at it from a whole view, we're obviously hanging high here. So there's something that's going on at that point. Reads are coming across fine, so we know we're prefetching just fine and dandy. It's really that write operation and what's taking place there. All right. Other things out here. If this thing was actually doing SMB traffic, which we know it's not, but if it were, I'd expect to see a lot more out here with the LDAP operational latency. This would be another telling point of when you're trying to troubleshoot your quote unquote slow performing cluster, where is the issue actually arising from? If I see a whole bunch of spikes out here in my LDAP latency, odds are the slow performance is coming from that LDAP server. We can take a look at internal Grafana stats and get a better idea of that. There's also some one-liners you can do out there to query, how long an operation takes to get over to your LDAP servers. Likewise, you may have a case where sites and services was never set up. And so if you have a very large organization and your clients, let's say they're in, I don't know, Texas, but as an organization, you also bought up some company out in Singapore, and now they're making that call all the way out to Singapore to get logged in. Well, that's going to be some latency that you're not expecting out there. So this can also be good for troubleshooting those sorts of things and giving you an idea of where to look. There's a question out there in the Q&A chamber. Can you share the LDAP query? Absolutely, I can. What I'll end up doing is once this gets populated out to the YouTubes, I will throw it in the description just so people have it handy there. So I'm sure a lot of folks are going to want to know what that is. And that way I'm not hanging out and sending off a whole bunch of private DMs to all you guys. So if that works for you, great. If not, let me know and we'll figure something out. We'll go from there. All right. Mark that guy. Cool. Okay, donkeys. Let's see what else we got out here we're looking at. Okay, went through that guy. So let's talk about alerting and events. So we talked about these early on, insofar as the events that were taking place out here. Where do all these come from? If you come up here, well, actually, manage alerts here. Normally, what you can do is come up here and in your user settings, you will have alerts out here. Now, I have the other day I configured email alerts for Qumulo engineering. Wow, my inbox got filled really quick. It's a good thing I only check email once a day. You can come in here, and this is a relatively new thing. You can come in here and check which ones you do want alerts for. So if you're in charge of just the servers in, I don't know, Roanoke and not anything outside of Roanoke, you can just set it for those servers. If you're in charge of everything in Virginia, then you'd obviously want all those in Virginia covered there. Let's go ahead and cancel out that guy. Things that we do alert on. So these are all coming in over via open metrics. As the more and more open metric items get pushed out to the cluster itself that we're polling against, these will expand. They have done quite a bit already. So software upgraded, cool. These hardware events, we talked about that. Nodes, drives, NICs. Nexus connectivity. Oops, there's another alert question here. How can we add more than one email for the alerts? So what you would do is so these alerts are just for me at this point. They're for my user, Will Stroh. So what you'd have is, well, what a lot of customers end up having is they'll have individual people added to Nexus. Again, talk to your CSMs. They can add you in there. There was a change recently where they can make one person at your organization the admin for the org, and then those people can handle those requests as well. If you don't have that or don't know about it or don't know if you have it, again, just talk to your CSM, reach out in the channel. We can get you in touch with them and they can get that all straightened out. That's not a problem. But what a lot of folks will end up doing is have individual people in there for the alerts. And then they'll also have a distribution list or DL for an alert as well. And so that way, they don't have to worry about constantly adding people into Nexus. They just have to add them to that distribution list, and then things go off that way, just fine and dandy. Hopefully, I answer your question. If not, let me know, and we'll follow that up with another answer. Another question out there is how granular are the capacity exceeded alerts? So we come down to 98% here. Now, the Qumulo as a whole, 98% is not danger territory, Will Robinson. We will let you know about it, but your cluster's not going to up and die at 98%. You can go off and run your cluster with extremely rare until extremely rare circumstances, rather. You can run that thing to 99.99999%. Obviously, at 100, you're going to run. I mean, you have a read-only cluster at that point, which is perfectly fine. It will work. It just pretend it's your replication target at that point. It's read-only. It's great. There are rare circumstances where, when running at those higher percentages, you can run into issues with like snapshot contention, where it'll try and take a snapshot, but you don't really have enough space to field everything at the same time. And things can get dicey there. It's pretty darn rare, though. In 7.5, going on 8 years, I think I've seen that happen twice. And these were customers who routinely ran at 99.98% capacity. One of them was a little imaging firm up here in Denver, where they would be taking space snapshots of things, probably my license plate. And I bet you they were the ones who sent me the ticket the other day. So, you know what? I got a bone to pick with those guys. But outside of that, we do set this high because you're fine running at that capacity there. There's really no issues. But 98, yeah, you might want to consider something there. Now, you can go in and you can't change it here in Nexus. This is going to be hard code at 98, but you can set up something like Qumulo alerts or just set up a cron job to look at a DF and set a warning out there, say 75 even. The rationale for doing that really comes down to the rest of the world at this point. So if you've been living under a rock or you're like an Encino man, then you're not aware that the world has moved on to a very strange place right now as far as getting a hold of hardware. If you are cloud only, not a problem. If you are on-prem hardware based, there's some lead times now that are kind of unheard of. So it would be something to keep in mind that, the days of just reaching out to us and saying, hey, I need another, 200 petabytes. Not a problem. We can get that for you in a week. Not quite the case anymore. A lot of our vendors are having a hard time with that. So it is something to keep in mind that you would want to keep an eye on that, but that's really more for the full picture perspective as opposed to just performance related. Am I going to go pause up when I hit 98%? You're not. All right. Threat detection out there. This is a new one. Ooh, fancy. So this all comes down to NeuroProtect. If you have not thrown that on your box yet, talk to your SE. I think they do demos of it. It is a paid service, as I recall, so it is something you need to focus on from that perspective. But it is an active malware, ransomware, whateverware scanner out there, if you will. So it would be something to keep in mind that might make a lot of sense for some of us, especially given various industries that we're in. Now, as you can see out here, I do have these little flipper doppers. Those I can disable for each and every single one of those if I would like to. If I only want to know when my software gets upgraded, I just flip everything else off and flip that one on. Super duper easy. Likewise, if you want to do the send test alert, we'll kick you over one. I had a picture of one somewhere here. There we go. So this is one that came over, I don't know, a while ago. It was definitely not 7 minutes ago. Looks like it was about 2 years ago to be exact, because that's when I flipped this thing on a while ago. So that's really what you're seeing out there. And it just short, quick, to the point. Here's what's going on. We had an Ethernet interface go offline. Is that a concern? Again, comes down to whether or not you were expecting it. Maybe you were, maybe you weren't. Don't know. But it's something to keep in mind. Alrighty. Now, a couple other things to focus on up here. So we're going through the clusters right now and pulling up alerts. Cloud Data Fabric, that's going to be cool because it shows me my portal data out here. Likewise, I can create new portals. Super duper easy. Over here in the download section, I don't know why so many customers reach out to us when we know they have Nexus access and they say, I need to know my upgrade path. I don't know why that happens. But if you get nothing else from this webinar, please get this. View upgrade path. You can pick whichever version your little heart desires. Let's go 6.3 because that was a fun release. And let's go to the latest and greatest. Boom. All right. Once I hit that little button, it's going to show me, oh, it's only 11 hops. That's a lot fewer than I thought it was going to be. Couple things out here. Tells you right off the bat whether it's instant or platform. That's the second most asked question we get about upgrades is, what are these? Well, again, everything is here within Nexus. This will save you time on Slack and cut quick to the chase here. So there's an instant one, there's platform one. It used to be anything with a zero as a third digit was almost guaranteed to be a platform update. It's not the case anymore. So now all you can say is everything with a zero as a third digit, you're going to have to hit. But beyond that, all that does is signify it's a quarterly release at that point for, in this case, a 7.1 software chain. So what you do is just download each of these fellows, save them over there, good to go. In this case, we got what? 1 platform update, 2 platform updates, 3, 4 platform updates. Cool, you say. Well, Will, that's great. What does a platform update mean? Again, over here. You can take a look. It tells you right there. That's going to be if you need to do a rolling reboot or a complete reboot. If you have an outage window, I'm always going to tell you to do a complete reboot. Makes things so much quicker. If you do a rolling reboot, what ends up happening out there is we'll copy that image out there, restart the containers, and then you got to reboot each node as they go. Now, certain platforms take longer than others, so I always default and say you're looking at 10 minutes per node. If you are one of those customers that has a 150 node cluster, you'll take 150, multiply that by 10. That'll give you a number of minutes you're going to need to do this whole kit and caboodle. On top of that, presuming you still have writes that come in during that time, you're going to have to reprotect against those. So when node 1 goes offline, all writes go to nodes 2 through whatever. When node 1 comes back into play, it moves anything that was sitting that should have been going to node 1 back over to node 1, and then it will move on to node 2. How long does that take? Can't rightfully say. What I can say is I have seen the extreme of it, which was a 75 node cluster. We're doing live TV streaming, and it took 10 minutes to reboot a node, 75 minutes per node to do a reprotect. It was not a quick operation by any stretch. So again, if you have the outage, I would recommend the complete reboot, just because that'll take you 10 minutes total. Boom, bingo, bang, boom. You're done, back and running. All right. Other things that are out here. Obviously, we have the nice little support tab. You can reach out to us in all sorts of ways. Call us, email us, open up a case, do what you want. We'll talk to you. We don't bite, usually. Last thing, well, I guess we can hit the CNQ one. CNW. What would that be? Cloud Native Web? I don't know. Cloud Native Qumulo over here. If you are doing cloud things, this is going to be your friend. This will get you the latest Terraform files, as well as any of the Debian packages with the RPMs that you need. When it comes time to upgrade these guys, you use the exact same things as you would normally. That's one of the great things about Qumulo. It's all the same. It will figure things out and do what it needs to on the back end, but all you got to worry about is the front side of it. So don't be looking for any crazy cloud-only packages or anything like that. All right. Man, are we at the tail end of things? We might be. I think we are. Okay, so in closing, if there's no other questions, couple of things. One. First off, next month we're covering Qumulo GitHub. It's kind of the unloved child out there, so we're going to take a look and see what's out there, see what things you might have been missing this whole time along. Secondly, starting August 24th, this is very important information, so write this down on the calendar. August 24th, the Rocky Mountain Biological Labs are bringing Fat Marmot Week to bear. So it's going to compete with Fat Bear Week. So on August 24th, head out to the Rocky Mountain Biological Labs, vote on the fattest marmot so that we can take on the fat bears. That being said, if you see any talking dogs, be sure to feed them tacos. And until next time, stay safe, everybody. We love you out there.